The problem isn't that emotions show up. The problem is that most of us were never taught how to work with them. And when you stop fighting the hijack, when you stop shaming it, suppressing it, or pretending it shouldn't exist, something powerful happens. You regain choice. Not because the emotion disappears, because you know what it is, why it's there, and how to respond without losing yourself. That's not just emotional control. That's emotional mastery. Welcome to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, where we explore the keys to unlocking your full potential and living your best life. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. Whether you're looking to make a breakthrough, overcome a challenge, or simply live with greater clarity, joy, and purpose, you'll find the tools and inspirations you need right here. So let's start your journey towards personal mastery and growth right now. Welcome back to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, your go-to resource for practical tips, insightful research, and inspiring stories to help you unlock your full potential. I'm your host, Jose Johnson, and I'm an expert in the fields of mindfulness, mindset, and peak performance. And I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Now, this is part one of a two-part exploration into what happens when stress doesn't just challenge us, it takes over. So today we're talking about something every single one of us has experienced, whether we want to admit it or not: emotional hijacking. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, that wasn't me. I don't know why I reacted like that. I know better than that. You replay the moment in your head. You analyze your tone. You think about what you should have said instead. And the confusion isn't about what happened. It's about the gap between who you believe you are and who showed up under pressure. Now, that gap is deeply uncomfortable, and most people fill it with self-judgment. But what if that moment wasn't a personal failure at all? What if it was a predictable biological response, one that follows a pattern, that leaves clues, and can actually be trained? Well, that's what we're unpacking today. So what does emotional hijacking actually mean? Well, the term emotional hijacking describes what happens when the emotional centers of the brain override the thinking centers. So in plain English, emotion takes the wheel. Logic gets pushed to the passenger seat. Reaction happens faster than reflection. Now, that doesn't mean logic disappears forever. It just means logic gets delayed. And under stress, delay matters. Your brain evolved in environments where hesitation could mean danger. So when a threat is detected or even suspected, speed becomes more important than accuracy. And that wiring, it never goes away. What has changed is the nature of the threats that we face. This all goes back to an ancient system that's been put in the modern world. Your nervous system evolved to deal with threats like predators, scarcity, immediate danger, clear physical threats. It did not evolve for performance reviews, passive-aggressive emails, social comparison, ambiguous feedback, complex power dynamics. But here's the problem. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference. It doesn't ask, is this a saber-toothed tiger or just a tense meeting? It just asks one question. Is something important at stake? And if the answer feels like yes, the alarm system activates. And this is why emotions always beat logic to the punch. One of the most important principles to understand is this: emotion moves faster than conscious thought. That's why you feel defensive before you even know why. Your body tightens before your mind explains it. You react before you can stop yourself. The emotional brain is always scanning for danger, rejection, loss of control, threats to belonging or to worth. Now, this scanning happens automatically. By the time your rational mind shows up to assess the situation, the emotional response is already in motion. This is why people often say, well, I don't know what came over me. Nothing came over you. Something activated within you. So let's talk about perceived threat versus real threat. Yes, here's where things get especially interesting. Your nervous system does not reliably distinguish between real danger and perceived threat. To your brain, criticism can feel like danger. Conflict can feel like risk. Being ignored can feel unsafe. Being questioned can feel like exposure. The body responds first. Your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, your muscles tighten, your vision narrows. You're no longer operating from curiosity or perspective. You're operating from protection. And protection doesn't care about nuance. All right, so here's a crucial insight. Most emotional hijacks are not about what just happened. They're about what the moment represents. A comment doesn't just land as a comment. It lands as a meaning. And meaning is where the hijack really begins. Now, at the deepest level, emotional hijacking is an identity event. The nervous system isn't reacting so much to the situation. It's reacting more to what the situation seems to say about you. Now, common identity threats include, I'm not competent. I'm being disrespected. I'm losing control. I don't belong. I'm failing. Once identity feels threatened, the system mobilizes fast. Defensiveness, withdrawal, over-explaining, anger, silence. Different expressions, same underlying mechanism. Now, this is exactly why two people can experience the same situation and have completely different reactions. One person hears feedback and gets curious. Another hears the same feedback and they shut down. It's not about the feedback. It's about which identity wire gets touched. The nervous system reacts based on your past experiences, your learned associations, your unresolved emotional memory, your core beliefs about safety and self. And this is also why hijacks often feel disproportionate. The reaction is rarely about now, it's about then. So why does logic go dark under hijack? Well, once the hijack is active, your perspective collapses. Your options narrow. Right versus wrong thinking takes over. Curiosity disappears. Logic isn't gone. It's just unavailable. And this is where people make a critical mistake. They try to reason with themselves while the system is hijacked. That's like trying to install software while the computer is overheating. Wrong timing. Now keep in mind that there's a cost of misunderstanding a hijack. When we don't understand emotional hijacking, we tend to label ourselves as reactive or broken. We shame the response. We promise to do better next time. We suppress instead of integrate. But suppression doesn't train the system. It just delays the next hijack. Understanding the mechanism restores something essential: agency. Not control, agency. All right, in the second half of this episode, we're going to shift from understanding to application. We'll look at how to recognize a hijack early, how to interrupt it without suppression, how to work with identity threats directly, and how to respond in a way that actually aligns with who you want to be. And that's where real mastery begins. All right, now that you understand what emotional hijacking is and why it happens, here's the critical shift. Insight alone does not prevent hijacks. Understanding gives you compassion. Skill gives you leverage. And leverage is what allows you to respond differently before the moment spirals. And this is where most personal growth work stops too early. People learn why they react, but they never learn how to navigate the reaction while it's unfolding. So let's work on fixing that. Now, you've probably heard advice like, just pause before you respond. Take a breath. Count to 10. Now, those aren't bad suggestions. They're just incomplete. Because when you're hijacked, the system isn't looking for calm. It's looking for safety. And safety doesn't come from willpower. It comes from sequence interruption. And that's what we're going to do next. So let's look at the practical framework of R.E.A.C.T. Now, this is a core tool for today's episode, and it's designed for real-time use, not after-the-fact reflection. R.E.A.C.T. stands for recognize, externalize, anchor, clarify, time shift. All right, so let's walk through this slowly and concretely. R, recognize the hijack early. The earlier you recognize a hijack, the less power it has. The first signals are not thoughts. They're physical sensations, tightness in the chest, heat in the face, clenching your jaw, a sudden sense of urgency, a spike in your tone or your speed. Now, most people miss this moment because they're focused on being right instead of being aware. Recognition doesn't stop the hijack, but it does weaken the momentum. And that alone is very important. E, externalize the emotion. Now, this step is subtle, but very powerful. Instead of being the emotion, you name it. Not out loud, internally. This is anger. This is defensiveness. This is fear. Now, this does something critical. It separates you from the emotion. You're no longer inside it. You're observing it. And that shift restores just enough space for you to choose to re-enter the room. A, anchor the body, not calm it. Now, this is important. You're not trying to calm down. You're anchoring. Anchoring says, I'm here, I'm grounded, I'm not in danger. Simple anchors work best. Things like feeling your feet in your shoes, relaxing the muscles around your eyes, exhaling slightly longer than you inhale, dropping your shoulders. You're not trying to fix the emotion. You're stabilizing the platform that it's standing on. C, clarify the meaning. Now, this is where this framework becomes identity-based instead of stress-based. Ask yourself one question. What does this feel like it says about me? Not, what's wrong with them? Not, how do I win this situation? Meaning comes first, because hijacks are driven by identity threats, not logic errors. When you name the meaning, you reduce its grip. And T, time shift the response. Now, this step protects relationships, careers, and self-respect. You don't owe an immediate response. Urgency is often a hijack in disguise. Time shifting might look like this. Let me think about that. I just need a moment. Can we revisit this later? Choosing not to hit send. Delay is not avoidance. It's a strategy. Choice returns with time. Hey there. Feeling stuck? Spinning your wheels? Are you ready for a breakthrough? Well, then you need to hear this because I've got something that will supercharge your growth this year, and it's called the Mindset Makeover. Now, it's my new book and course that are designed to help you upgrade the mental software that drives your success. And inside, you're going to discover the mindsets that shape every decision, every habit, and every result. And you'll learn the science-backed tools to rewire your thinking for clarity, confidence, and unstoppable momentum. So whether you're aiming higher, trying to break free from old patterns, or finally stepping into that version of yourself that you know that you're capable of becoming, well, this is your launch pad. So don't wait. Head over to josejohnson.com/mindset to grab the book, join the course, or get both together. Again, that's josejohnson.com/mindset. And remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. And with the Mindset Makeover, you can make it something extraordinary. All right, so let's bring this into real life. Here's our first example. Workplace feedback. You receive feedback that feels vague or critical. Your body tightens. You feel defensive. So we use the R.E.A.C.T model. R, recognize. You notice the sensation. E, externalize. This is defensiveness. A, you anchor. Exhale, relax your face. C, clarify. Well, this feels like it says, I'm not competent. And T, time shift. You ask clarifying questions instead of reacting. Different outcomes, same moments. Now, another example is personal relationships. Someone says, you never listen. Now, this immediately creates heat and the urge to defend. So R, recognize the sensation. The chest tightens. E, externalize that emotion. This is anger. A, anchor yourself. Ground your feet. C, clarify. Well, this feels like I'm being blamed. And T, time shift. You pause instead of escalating. This way, the conversation stays open. Now, using R.E.A.C.T doesn't eliminate hijacks overnight. But here's what it does do. It shortens their duration. It reduces their intensity. It changes the outcomes. Now, over time, the nervous system learns, I don't need to escalate to be safe, because that's not control. That is training. Now, another tool that you can use is the identity check. Now, later, not in the heat of the moment, use this simple reflection. Ask yourself, what identity felt threatened? What was I afraid the situation said about me? What part of me was trying to protect itself? What response would align with the person I want to be under pressure? Now, this isn't about perfection. It's about congruence. And this is why this changes everything. When you understand emotional hijacking, you stop shaming yourself for being human. You stop expecting logic to win during threat. You stop fighting your nervous system, and you start working with it. And that is real mastery. Not suppressing emotions, not pretending that you're unaffected, but responding with awareness, timing, and intention. So in the next episode, we'll take this one step further, because emotional hijacking doesn't just affect how you feel, it directly affects how you decide. We'll explore why urgency collapses judgment, how stress narrows options, why quick decisions often feel right and go really wrong, and how to choose wisely even when you're activated. Now, this episode, well, it gives you emotional leverage. And the next one, that's going to give you decisional leverage. All right, so here's the moment I want you to remember the next time you react and immediately start judging yourself. Emotional hijacking, it's not a character flaw. It's not proof that you haven't done the work, and it is not a step backwards. It's just your nervous system doing what it was designed to do, protect you. The problem isn't that emotions show up. The problem is that most of us were never taught how to work with them. And when you stop fighting the hijack, when you stop shaming it, suppressing it, or pretending it shouldn't exist, something powerful happens. You regain choice. Not because the emotion disappears, because you know what it is, why it's there, and how to respond without losing yourself. That's not just emotional control. That's emotional mastery. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's been hard on themselves lately. And make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode in the Real Life Stress Test series. So until next time, remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Thanks for tuning in. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or treatment. While the content of this podcast is based on research and personal experience, everyone's situation is unique, and the advice given may not be applicable to all. Always consult a qualified professional before making significant changes in your life. The Personal Mastery and Growth podcast is recorded at the So Good Media Studios located in the Candy Factory, a co-working space in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.